Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Justin Vogel. I'm the Director of IA, and Digital Programming at the Upledger Institute. We are very excited tonight for another In Touch presentation. This is one I think that we've all been looking forward to for quite some time. It was chosen specifically this month and this year. It fit in so well because it is the 40th year of the Upledger Institute. The Healing Path, CranioSacral Therapy, Veterans, and the Power of Upledger Intensive Therapy Programs for Complex Injuries and Trauma. We're going to hear from longtime Upledger instructor and diplomate certified Hank Meldrum. Hank actually pre-recorded because Hank's in the Netherlands, so it's a very late, it would be a very late in Hank's day here. So we'll hear from Hank. We have Kate McKinnon out west in California. Kate's a longtime Upledger, upper level craniosacral therapist, diplomate certified. Frank Selden, 20-year Army veteran. We're all looking very much eagerly into hearing what Frank has to say about his journey with the Upledger Institute Craniosacral Therapy intensive programs. And then Jackie Halderman will be here speaking on behalf of the Dr. John E. Upledger Foundation. Jackie is a board member for the foundation. So, going to get a few things started. I do just want to make sure we're admitting everyone that's in the weight room, but I'm going to tell a little bit about the series, about the In Touch series. We have presentations by our teachers, developers. Tonight we have um, four different speakers, and one being an Army veteran and the experience that Frank's had with craniosacral therapy, the intensive programs by the Upledger Institute. The whole point of the series is spreading awareness, letting people know about how amazing these therapies are. Many of you here are likely craniosacral therapists and all the great work that so many people are doing all over the world to help so enhance your health and the health of your clients. Hopefully, if you receive this from us because you are on our email list, that you were able to invite somebody that you thought could benefit. The In Touch series is open to anyone, so you don't have to be a therapist to be here. Anyone can take part. Tonight, we're hoping to have a lot of veterans here with us that can learn more. Maybe they're in a space in life that, well, I think we all are in a position in life that we're always looking to improve and have help. So hopefully we can do some of that tonight and point people in the right direction and show how to get involved, how you can get involved maybe as a client, a patient at the therapy programs, and then if you are a therapist, how you can get involved with those programs as well. There's several different ways, and you're going to hear about that. So before we do get started, I just want to say this presentation is for educational and illustrative purposes. It is not intended to convey medical or therapeutic advice. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie Halderman. Jackie will be speaking on behalf of the foundation. Jackie is a board member of the foundations.
Thank you, everyone, for joining our program this evening. As Justin said, I'm Jackie Halderman. I've actually been with the Upledger and Boral Institutes for almost 12 years now, and I am now a board member, and I'm very proud to be a board member of the Dr. John E. Upledger Foundation. The foundation was actually created to raise awareness, support, and treatment for cranial sacral therapy. The manual therapy, which was developed over 40 years ago now by Dr. Upledger, which is where we got our name. Dr. Upledger was an osteopath. If you're not really familiar with cranial sacral, it's benefits those who suffer from a wide range of medical problems associated with pain and dysfunction and other conditions like we're going to talk about tonight, such as post-traumatic stress, concussions, traumatic brain injuries. It ranges to autism, neck and back pain, and many, many more other conditions and challenges. So I think you'll find the program very interesting this evening, and I'll see you on the flip side. Enjoy.
Thank you, Jackie. And we will be hearing from Jackie more a little bit later. The first thing I'm going to do is, again, I had a chance to speak with Hank Meldrum a few days back, and I'm going to hand the floor over here and we'll begin that. Good afternoon, Hank. Thanks so much for being here and joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to jump right into it. I'm wondering if you can let the audience know a little bit about your history and your journey with craniosacral therapy.
Well, it started in the 70s. I was in my final year, I think it was 1973 or 4, in physiotherapy in the Netherlands. And then one of my classmates said, "You know what I heard? That you could manipulate the joints of the skull." And I thought, "Wow, that is like far out. I got to be able to do that." And so after I did physiotherapy, I studied orthopedic manipulative therapy, which is like chiropractic for physiotherapists. And then after that, I got a spot on osteopathy in the cranial field, and simultaneously with that, I studied craniosacral therapy under Dr. Upledger. At one point, he was going to be in Germany doing his first. It was in 1988. His first craniosacral therapy course there, and so I went there and had a great time. And I saw what he was doing also with the what we call the somato-emotional release, like working with the body and therapeutic dialogue. What happens after that? These results, people actually changing their life on the spot. I said, all right, if it takes me even 15 years, I'm going to go through with it. I'm just going to go for it. And so when I finished my orthopedic manipulative therapy, I did, like I just said, and I did the courses in the USA, most of them with Dr. John. And at one point, this was in, let's see, in the 80s, early 90s, and I was assisting him at an advanced course. And things at the Institute were getting very, very busy. And back then, once a month, he would do an advanced course, which for a week. And there were so many enrollees, the Institute, that he just couldn't, he couldn't take care of the backlog. So he asked me, and I think Chas Perry, and a couple of other people, if they would want to become advanced instructors. So that's what happened then. So I was, I guess I was on the fast lane. I didn't have to go through cranial 1, 2, 3. I was just at that one spot at that moment in time, and just fell into it. And I've enjoyed it. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people all through the years since 1993 when I did my first course and my first advanced class. And that's what I actually enjoy most, treating people and then doing the advanced 1 and 2 courses. And I still do that. I have a course in October, and I still treat people. I mean, I'm 77 years old, but this week we'll be treating 2 people, and maybe next week 4 or 5. Whoever comes, just keep my hand in.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, could you talk a little bit about your experience working specifically with the Upledger Institute Veteran Intensive Programs?
Yes, because it has changed through the years. In 1993, the Upledger Institute funded the first PTSD intensive class for veterans, war veterans, and that there were 6 veterans there, and it was like for 2 weeks, a 2-week intensive with a weekend in between, and the results were very, very positive. And so a few years later, the Upledger Institute and the Janice and Robert McNair Foundation funded a second pilot, which was even more hopeful. And in 1999, the third pilot was organized all at the Institute in Palm Beach Gardens. And I was fortunate enough to be present at that one. And to me, that was such an amazing experience to see people at the beginning of the week, being like feeling hopeless or feeling withdrawn, that they didn't easily make contact with their surroundings, and sort of just more or less hung out together. The vets are they seemed untrusting. It's not very overtly, but they didn't easily contact non-vets that were present. And at the end of the intensive, there was so much change, but you can also think, oh, well, okay, of this therapy, maybe you're on a high. But through follow-up, it was very evident that the results were actually astounding. These people had turned their lives around, and they were using less medication. And I'll just read something here. Of course, they were evaluated before the intensive started psychologically, and at the end. So before or later, the results revealed a decrease in feelings of rejection, abandonment, interpersonal sensitivity, paranoia, anxiety, defense avoidance, hostility, depression, despair, and much more. I'm just reading a few. And this changed into feelings of hope, trust, outgoingness, and general well-being. And regrettably, there was no more funding after that, despite the successes and the research. But later, a few years later, there were benefactors, and I know at least one of them, more of them being veterans themselves. And they helped fund a couple more intensive for not just Vietnam veterans, war veterans. And I was present at two of them, and really, I don't know if I could say it was life-changing for me, but it was attitude and outlook changing for me. Well, you know how, and also became even more hopeful about people who were really down and out in life in general, in their existence, like with really in the pits, so to speak, that they could just rise up, and it didn't have to take that long. And that's what I was really, that astounded me. Like with craniosacral therapy, that you really don't need that much treatment. And during these intensives, there were also, you know, here and there a bit of acupuncture. You know, sometimes there was a bit of a talk with a psychologist, but they were not the primary therapies. Primary therapy was craniosacral therapy. It's non-invasive. Nothing happens to the person that they don't want. We're not fixing things. We're just facilitating their good health, helping them get back on the road. We help in removing restrictions, you know, their physical and emotional restrictions. And then the people themselves, they take over, right? So they weren't able to get past a certain boundary, and we help them get past that, and then they do it themselves. And that's what I also love about craniosacral therapy. Remember, Dr. Don says, I don't like fixers. You know, don't ever tell them you were a healer. You'd be in deep water. So that's the lovely thing about it. You're not, it's also very, very humbling. You're just actually being a professional friend, helping people, you know, so just guiding them through their issues. And that's it. I love it. I hope I can do it. You know, like what was that I just read on the internet? That I can die young at a very old age.
Terrific, Hank. So you've touched a little bit upon it, but could you also expand a bit with how working with the veteran and even other intensive Upledger Institute international programs has impacted and improved you as a therapist along your journey?
It impacted me in a way that, well, being in awe, and it's very humiliating and actually good for you as a therapist to constantly be reminded that you're not the one. You know, you're basically a vehicle. And that's what, especially when I work alone, I have a one person practice, and then we work multiple hands on, and then with a whole room of different tables, and it just helped me realize that, hey, I'm part of the process. I'm not the one who's running the show. And I think to me, with my kind of character, that was very helpful. And of course, the skills you acquire, you have your colleagues there, and you are confronted with issues that you do not always get in your regular practice at home. I mean, these people have really been through a lot. They've having many have confronted death on a daily basis. I remember reading that the Veterans Affairs said that there were 50,000 military who were killed during the Vietnam War, and there were at least that many suicides of the veterans after the war. So, that also impacted me. That you can help people even get through the hopelessness in life. It just made everything far more vivid for me. Because usually in your office you get people who've have had physical trauma, emotional trauma, but very seldom this kind of thing. I mean, this is the big time. This is the big time. No nonsense. No, you have to be totally present, and then and constantly. No leaning back. And I think that really helped me realize that I have to have that also in my own practice. I have to stay sharp, stay focused, and not try to fix people.
Terrific. I was going to ask if what ways that had impacted you within your own practice when you're in individual sessions as well, but you touched upon that. Would you like to say anything else in regards to that, Hank?
Uh, Often I've noticed that if I was treating somebody, then something would come up. I mean, in my own practice here in the Netherlands, then something would come up which would remind me of something that came up during one of the intensives. And that was really helpful as well, that I got more chops. I learned more chops in these, as they say in the music business, guitar players, learn your chops. And I got a lot of them, a lot of what I use and know now comes from these intensive treatment sessions. So
Terrific.
personal growth, seeing other people, what they have been through and what they're the bravery, the courageousness in which they're going through this stuff again and coming out on top is very humbling, because think, man, would I be able to do that? And perhaps I could, with the help of good craniosacral therapists who are non-judgmental and fully equipped and willing to go out there with you, out into the whole universal flakiness, and then remain grounded. And I think if I went through something like that, then I would be hopeful, or any kind of trauma that resulted in a PTSD, that I would be very hopeful in visiting consulting a craniosacral therapist.
All right, terrific. I know I'm very eager to hear a bit more about Frank's story. Frank's a 20-year Army veteran. During our preparation for this, he's been making us all very jealous with his view. It's getting darker there in Puerto Rico now, but I'm going to hand it over. I know that Frank's going to tell you about himself. And Frank, thank you for being so generous, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Justin. The video that you shared of Hank reminded me of being on the table and looking up at his face during my intensive week in November of 2016. I did not know anything about craniosacral therapy prior to 2016. I had 3 tours after 9/11, 2 in combat zones in Iraq, and had an IED back injury in my first tour and a rollover neck injury in my second tour. Also acquired a rather rare virus around 2014. And life was tough, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. I was out of the military at the end of 2013, and Anyways, one day in 2016, I get a call from one of my battle buddies in Iraq, and at the time she worked for the Veterans Office in Bellingham, Washington. And she said, "Hey, there is a poster here in Bellingham for a CranioSacral Therapy retreat in Oregon." That was in September of 2016, and she said, "You're one of the most messed up veterans I know. You should definitely go to this." And we laughed about that. If only reason, probably very true. I knew nothing about CranioSacral Therapy before going to the November event. I was there with 5 or 6 other veterans. All of the therapists who were there were volunteers. There was a nurse, a Navy nurse, who had put this program together. I was a huge fan of CranioSacral Therapy. And I got to meet her and several of the therapists, but the way that particular retreat was organized, the veterans pretty much stayed in a group, and the therapists were like in their own group. And but we all stayed at the same retreat center and had meals together, and it was very relaxing and peaceful, and it wasn't just about the therapy. It was about, like Hank said, just people who, just their outlook on life and their ability to be present and accepting and non-judgmental was just mind-blowing to me. It was announced at that meeting that there was going to be that there was this PTSD session coming up at the Upledger Institute in Florida in November of that year, of 2016. And even though that was only about 2 months away, I thought there wouldn't be a chance of being accepted, that it would be full, but they told me there was a space left. And based on things that were going on again in my life at the time, I didn't have the money to pay my own way. So there were, I don't know, foundation scholarship, not really sure how that got taken care of. All I had to do was get myself there. So, like Hank was talking about, the veterans were, off by ourselves, not really sure what's going on, not really sure still what CranioSacral Therapy is, even though 2 months ago I was at like a 5-day retreat. I don't know, feeling overwhelmed at times. My health was up and down energy wise, pain constantly. And let me tell you about the big breakthrough that happened at that session. And it happened actually with Hank, the practitioner that you just heard. I'm laying on a table looking up at him, this amazing face and this incredible smile. He's talking to me about what we're doing that day. And he mentions the Fascia Network. And I said, "What's that?" And he went into an explanation. And swear this is the truth. And Hank laughs about it. When we chat about it, I looked up and said to him, "I think you're making that up." And he said, "Oh no." And he got me off the table. We're in the Upledger Institute training room. There's posters all over the wall. He brings me over to a poster about the Fascia Network and talks to me about it. And I'm just stunned. Like, not even at the previous retreat did I know about this amazing network. And he talked to me about what the light touch was doing and how they are trained to sense for changes of energy, et cetera, in the Fascia Network in these multi-hands events. So I thought, okay, that's what we're doing. So I went back to the table and he's holding his hands, right here. And I think there's 3 people lightly touching various spots on my body. And while we're doing this is about totally an hour long, at least, session from start to finish. While we're just quiet and I'm calm, and Hank's touching here and other people in various places, my body started to curl. I thought at the time that they were moving me. Hank told me later they were touching me too lightly, that my body was doing that. And I moved into a position, a seated position on my side, almost falling off the table. Hank moved from the head of the table to the side of the table in order to keep me from falling off. But they all kept their light touch going. And at one point, my body was in the exact position it was in. So I get choked up about this. The exact position that was my body was in when the IED blast went off in Iraq. And all of a sudden I relived very quickly. I relived everything. And I learned a very valuable lesson that day about how the body stores emotional memory and trauma, and was linking it to the injury location, which is the location of the right sciatic area, was where the primary injury was. And somebody was lightly touching that, and my body's in this position, and all of a sudden, just an energy wave, and a release, and memory, and emotion. And one of the things that happened in that session was that I could see that some guilt that I had been carrying for this entire time, from that was 2005 to 2016, 11 years. That the narrative that I had created of my role in that incident, I had put some guilt on myself that there must have been something I could have done to prevent the injuries of the person who was next to me. And I could see in the instant of reliving that it wasn't true, that there was nothing I could have done, that it was tragic and that it happened, but it wasn't my fault. And that was stunning, and it was relieving, and it was amazing and profound and life-changing. I'd been through PTSD clinics, I've been through counseling, I've been through therapy, I've been through, I don't know, drugs, alcohol, suicide attempt that had a divine intervention. Why did that work when none of these other things did? To this day, I have no idea. But I do know that I continue to be grateful on a daily basis for CranioSacral Therapy and its impact on my life. And I'm very glad to be here today, and I'm honored that you do what you do in the way that you do it. I think sometimes some of the healing that happens in these multi-hands is, in the military world, it can be so isolated into an us and them mentality. And the them is enemies who want to kill us. And that creates a very particular kind of mindset. And sometimes we lose sight of how else to be in the world. And you will demonstrate an amazing way to be in the world that I still, I try to emulate every day. Not a therapist, didn't go to school for that. But I do tell a lot of people about CranioSacral Therapy. And I want to thank you for what you do and how you do it. And I am 100% convinced every day that it makes an incredible difference. Thank you. And I think I'm going to leave it right there, Justin.
Wow. Thank you, Frank. That was very moving, and the chat has a lot of comments in there. If you want to look at that in the meantime, here we're the next place we're going to go is we're going to hand it over to Kate. Kate is a diplomate certified craniosacral therapist out in California, Northern Cal, the Bay Area, I believe. If yes, the Livermore, I think. And Kate will tell you more. But Kate has served as a support and primary therapist, so I don't know what else we would need to hear than what we just did for any therapist to want to get involved with all with what I heard and the people that I get to work with all the time. I have a feeling that there's many of you who want to hear what Kate has to say. Kate, thanks for joining us here in your afternoon, and the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much, Frank. I was absolutely riveted to the spot. It was so moving to hear your experience. And in fact, I was a support therapist in that program that Frank attended. So amazing these years later to hear the results of the intensive program for you. So yes, like Justin said, I'm diplomat certified. I have a private practice in Livermore, California for the last over 20 years. And I have participated in many comprehensive programs, both at the Institute in the Bahamas and in the UK. And, you know, I love them and I'm really happy to share what I feel are the benefits of being a therapist in these programs. And they're not just my ideas. I did talk with friends and colleagues that I've gotten to know over the years have been in the programs. They also shared their perspective with me in true multi-hand style. So first of all, I would love to see how many of you have already participated in one of these programs. You know, either whether you've been a support or primary. If you could show a heart, maybe do a heart to let us know how many of you have participated in the programs. And I'm going to invite anybody who has to, you can also put in your chats what you feel the benefits have been for you. Hopefully I'm going to cover them. So first of all, and Hank did say a few, is that you get to work with all these experienced therapists who have lots of different skills. So inevitably you're inspired and you're going to learn. We all learn as we work together. So there's that sort of melting pot that happens. And I would say that within the veterans program specifically, that we get to work with people like Hank talked about who've been through something that's quite specific and we could say unique often, really, I think, to serving in the armed forces. The other people that I know have sort of similar, maybe types of experiences are people who are first responders, either police or EMT or in the fire service. So I think experiencing and supporting somebody in this environment with other people around supports us when we go back into our own individual practices and work with somebody who has been through something similar. In fact, I remember a client opening his eyes and saying to me he was a highway patrol officer in a very life-threatening situation. And he just turned to me and he said, "But you haven't experienced anything like this." I said, "That's true. I haven't, but I have supported people, veterans who have been in similar types of situations that you have." And that helped him then move forwards to what he needed to process. So we've got Oscar joining us here. And I would say, you know, as we're working together, whether you're as a support therapist, as changes are happening in the body, you're more easily able to track those. You can, it's like with everybody in the room, it amplifies what we can feel and what we can track. So our hands are learning the whole time. We're increasing our skill set and our knowledge base. And when there is dialogue happening, we, if the primary is leading the dialogue, as support therapists, our hands are on, and we get this opportunity to then pay attention to where are those changes, what happens in the tissue as dialogue is happening, which I would say, is really that is specific to being in this kind of group environment. We I would say that the changes that take place on these programs, because we're there for the clients on the table for so many hours of the day, repeated days, that the changes we are come to observe by the end maybe would take weeks, months, or years to happen in our offices. So there is something that speeds up, and we get to see how somebody is at the beginning towards the end, and there's just such a profound change that it's very, very inspiring, just as we all got to experience listening to Frank talk about his experience. I think that we get to practice compassion and patience and acceptance for everyone in the room. As Hank was sharing, it's a humbling experience. Oftentimes, our ego is put to one side. And I think in these environments, oftentimes there's so much coming up that probably there's going to be something that's triggered within one of us as a therapist. And we get to practice putting that to one side and getting our work done at a later time. We get the experience of putting our hands on and connecting with one another, feeling into each other through the tissue, which, as we know, there's a blending and melding that happens when we work alone in our office, but this takes it to this whole other level. So we really get to increase our skills that way too. We get to listen to other therapists, their experiences, opinions, questions, how each of us write our notes up. So we get to, sort of just learn on all these different levels that we work at. We get to practice our confidentiality because we're there for a number of days together. And so sometimes, we've got to respect that confidentiality. Well, always respect the confidentiality, and we get to do that over the whole days that we're there. And for those of us, there are maybe some therapists who live in very rural areas, and you don't get to get together maybe for a study group or have that camaraderie because of the rural nature of where you're practicing. So when you gather together, you get to form community with one another, you get to know each other. I've made many friends through participating in these programs. You get to know each other well. And so you start to build your network and your connection to other therapists. You get to spend time in the evening, maybe going out for dinner. You may get an opportunity to work on each other. It does meet one of the requirements for your diplomat, for any of you out there who are working on it. It satisfies the preceptorship portion of it. And another big benefit that I've experienced is that you can bring a client. So if I brought a client to one of the programs at the Institute, and so I knew what I knew about my client, but she could benefit, and I could see the benefit of her receiving treatment from all these other experienced therapists. Jack is going to speak more specifically to what's required if you want to be a support or a primary therapist. But one of the ways is to bring a client. So that's a huge way of learning. So I hope that's covered what most people have also experienced as being the benefits of being, because whether you're the support or the primary, I think all of those come into it. And there are times, even when you're a primary therapist, you're asked to be a support therapist for a day. So there's, back and forth happening the whole time. And And then I'm going to just quickly talk about the importance of clients that have been on the intensive programs, then continuing their treatment, probably in somebody's office. So one more in what most of us work in, the one-to-one setting. And so there's great value in then continuing on afterwards. And the end of these programs, there's a lot of help given to people finding somebody in their local area, wherever they are living. And I have been fortunate to work with a veteran actually for the last 21 years. Mariella was on her second tour in Iraq, married to another soldier, had a young daughter. She was in her second tour and sustained a significant head injury. She was in a coma actually for 6 months and on the East Coast. So once she was flown back to the US, she was on the East Coast in some different facilities for about 2 years. But then she moved back to Palo Alto, close to me. And it's at that point that I set up teams of people to go in every week, maybe 2 to 3 therapists working with Mariella in the VA hospital, doing craniosacral therapy. And that's when we saw some really great changes happen for her, to the point where she was able to move into my hometown where we have a VA. We were able to continue the multi-hand treatment. I remember after one of the treatments, she then went for lunch and spontaneously used her right hand, which she had not been using, to eat her lunch. So we would see some immediate results for her, and we were able to then work with her in a hydrotherapy pool. She loves water, and she was able to do some great work in that hydrotherapy setting too. So even to this day, I still work with her every month, and we're able to work with some more day-to-day issues wherever there's pain arising. And craniosacral therapy has really been the primary input for her, primary support, and she's added in lots of different modalities over the years. But what I saw happen for her was once she recovered from the coma, which they weren't sure that she would pull through that they predicted that she would be bedbound and requiring 24-hour nursing care. And that she has surpassed that on so many levels. She's walking independently. She plays the piano. She does painting. She loves to horse ride. She needs a care assistant to help her in everyday life, but dramatically different from everything they were predicting. So she is sort of a big inspiration. And I have learned so much from working with her over this long period of time. For those of you who've read my book, From Her Hands and Heart, I do talk about Mariella in more detail and her journey, but she's a very inspiring person. So that's it for me. But I also would invite you to give us a heart or whatever reaction you can find to give. For any of you who are now inspired after listening to Frank and Hank and myself to participate as a support or primary therapist in any of these programs.
Thank you, Kate. Terrific job, Kate. Thank you. And who knew we would have a special bonus appearance as well?
Oh yeah, with Oscar. Yes, my apologies.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So, with that, there's been a lot of questions in the chat of how you can get involved. Again, Jackie is here on behalf of the foundation and is going to speak about that now, and I'll give some resources as well. But I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, and yeah, we'll have some info regarding how, if you are a therapist, you can get involved, or a veteran, or how anybody can get involved.
Okay, thank you. And really, from the bottom of my heart, representing the foundation, thank you. A big thank you to Frank and to Kate and to Hank and for Justin to pulling this all together. It's been very, very impressive program. You heard earlier from everybody how these veterans intensive programs, going back as early as the 1990s, confirmed that the veterans who went through the programs, they come out experiencing much fewer symptoms and their quality of life is very improved. And since the early 90s, as you've learned, the foundation has continued to run these intensive programs to help restore function and relieve pain and dysfunction. And so now I'm sure those of you listening want to know how you get involved. So if you're a practitioner and you want to join our team of therapists that participate, there's a page on our website, the Upledger Foundation website, which is upledger.org, where a therapist can fill out an application, or you can even email the foundation at upledger.org. The criteria, I think Kate briefly touched on this. If you are technique certified therapist in craniosacral therapy, which means you have completed craniosacral 1, craniosacral 2, and our somato emotional release course, and you are now technique certified and gone through that process, you can become a support therapist with us. Kate, I think, touched on the criteria for being a primary therapist, which means you've gone through more advanced levels. You can also be an accompanying therapist. So if you are a therapist listening and you have a client who you think would benefit from our program, you can refer that person, that individual, and you can accompany them. You can only treat that person if you're not technique certified. You wouldn't be treating the other veterans that are participating, but that's another way for you to get involved. So again, it's upledger.org, and on the page for the veterans, you'll see when you land on the landing page, it'll take you to a place for veterans. You click on that and it tells you then how to get involved as a therapist. There's other ways to get involved. You can make a donation. The foundation helps veterans and many other people gain access to craniosacral therapy and our intensive programs. By donating to the foundation, not only do you ensure the helping for that, but you're going to make sure we continue to provide research. We are very big into research and evidence-based, and donations help programming and research. And again, we have intensive programs not only for PTSD, which is what we've been talking about tonight, but there's concussion and there are other intensive programs. So again, go to the upledger.org page. Donations are easily made there. And that would be another way to get involved. It is our goal at the foundation to continually expand our reach and our ability to help others who are experiencing PTSD. I don't know what else I can say except that I'm very, very proud to be on the foundation board. It was a real honor when I was asked. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation and all the important information that was shared. And I think with that, I'll turn it back to Justin. And again, thank you for your attention this evening.
Excellent job as always, Jackie. Thank you. I did put in the link in the chat there, but I'm going to yeah, because you had pointed that out. But we're easy to be found as well. So, what I will say right now, I want to go over a few things, and I hope we'll have time for maybe a couple questions if that's there. So I won't take too much time. If you have a cellular phone, these are QR codes right here. If you want to get involved, if you're a veteran here and you would like the application, Frank said, I mean, if you listen to Frank, he said, I don't know, I showed up and then you heard what happened, which is just amazing. But this QR code is for the veteran application form. This QR code on this side is for therapists and veterans to access the Dr. John E. Upledger Foundation webpage to learn more. If you want to get involved as a therapist, I believe the form is on there for you to fill out the application form. You can donate on there. Maybe if you were, I know this was very moving. If you'd like to donate or get involved with spending your time, if you pull out your phone, this QR code will get you there. You can always connect with me, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction any way that I can. Or if you just are Googling Upledger Intensive Therapy Programs or Upledger, the PTSD Intensive Therapy Program, that will find it for you. We do have a program this November, the 18th through the 22nd. There are some spaces still available. So if you're joining us or you're seeing this at a later date, whatever that may, whenever that may be, this is the application. Again, this QR code on the bottom left. If you're a veteran, if you pull out your phone and use your camera, that will take you there and you can fill out that application form. There's no obligation for anything, but that way we'll get your information and we can reach out and hopefully help. We also have our dates for 2026, November 13th through the 17th. All of these, each of these events will be held at the Upledger Institute International in Palm Beach Gardens in our classroom. That's where we always hold our intensive therapy. Well, that's where the intensive therapy programs are typically held if they're in Palm Beach Gardens, right at the Institute there. Before we go, I wanted to let you know about an upcoming In Touch segment. We're excited exploring the lasting impact. Excuse me, before we move on, I wanted to let you know exploring the lasting impact of birth and the healing potential of craniosacral therapy. That's September 9th. We will include that in the follow up. We do post all of these on our Facebook page. They're there for you. You can share them with friends, whether they're on Facebook or not. Anybody can go ahead and watch the video on the Facebook. You don't have to be a member of Facebook to do that. So now what I would like to do, we do have a couple minutes. If there are any questions, I'm going to go into a bit of a panel. I'm going to highlight Frank here. Let me get you. Actually, Frank, if you don't mind turning on your camera, that would allow me to add you. And remove mine and let me get Kate. So if there are any questions now, you can use the raise hand feature. I'm gonna check the chat here just in case. Thanks so much. Okay, just looking over here. The raise hand feature.
A couple of questions that Kate, somebody had a question about the name of your book, and then I don't know who the best is to answer this one. What happens during the day of an intensive?
So the name of my book is From My Hands and Heart, Achieving Health and Balance with CranioSacral Therapy. And a typical day. Should I go ahead and do that, Justin?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it starts as in a group. So we sit in circle, and the facilitator will have everyone introduce themselves. The therapist will do a brief introduction of themselves, and each participant gets to introduce themselves. And then we are told which table we're working at, where everyone will be. The clients are at the table, they're told who their therapists are that are working with them. And the morning session generally is about 2 hours or so. We break for lunch, and then there's another few hours in the afternoon session. It's always dictated by the client, so they get to be on the table for as long as they will want, and if they need a break, they get to call the shots. And so the next morning, each client will gather in circle again. Each client will talk about their experience that they had on the table, and then we all go to the various tables. Each client generally has a different team of therapists working with them each day. And then on the final day, there's a closing circle where we get to really recap and see the amazing changes that have happened for everyone, clients, but I think every therapist who's participated in these will also has a reflection where they've been profoundly changed too. Frank, anything you want to add from your perspective on the day?
I no, It's as far as the data is concerned, very accurate. Thank you. From an experience point of view, I didn't necessarily like the circles, but I did get a lot out of them. Wasn't quite my thing, but it's all valuable. It's all good.
All right, wonderful. Are there any other questions? If you use the raise hand feature, I think I'll give about 2 minutes here. Otherwise, I think, what if we are part of the OMP program? So if there are any questions specifically about how to get involved, there is the application on the website. I would recommend filling that out. But again, I'm going to put my email in the chat. We won't spend too much time with this during the program here, but please feel free to email me and I'll get every question that I can for you there. Well, I will real quick. It said, well, I don't know, Frank. I think you're seeing the chat. Do you want to answer any of this question?
Why did Frank not like the circles? It has nothing to do with the circles. It has everything to do with Frank is not a group person. But if there was some going to be comfortable in group circle chat, then that was a good place to do it. It's very safe, very safe place to do it. So that's just me coming into a room and, oh, we're all going to sit in a circle and talk ad nauseum for hours with no direction and leadership. And anyways, that's just the way that that I was at the time, and I'm very different now. So and now actually I've actually led quite a few and done circle training work and led a lot of circles, but at the time I was not a fan. So that's just a reflection of me. I hope that helps, Gil.
Terrific. And I think also, Frank, if you would, it seems like we're getting to this point. I think it's only appropriate that you close us out. Any of your closing thoughts? Thank you so much, Frank.
Uh, sure. There's a lot more human interest going on than just the story that I shared when it comes to craniosacral therapy. The lady that put the retreat on that was in Oregon, attempted to do one back in 2020, right around the same time the COVID lockdowns hit. And she invited me to be in the planning circle for that. She also invited one of the therapists. She wanted a veteran's perspective and a therapist's perspective. And the therapist that she invited is now my sweetie, and we live here together in Puerto Rico. I think something had to do along the lines of, wow, you need so much work. I could be your full-time therapist. And I said, are you applying for the job? And anyways, I don't know. It's just fun stories that we tell. But no, we have been happily together for 4 years now, and both retired and enjoying Puerto Rico. One of the other fun stories is that the gal who called me, my battle buddy, Shelley, when I shared with her the story about how much I got out of the session, she wanted to go. And I was very happy to help sponsor her for the following year. And if you go to the website, the PTSD program Upledger page, one of those pages there has some videos, some after program videos in 2016, 2017, and Shelley's video is there. So yeah, she was the one that called me and suggested that I go, even though she knew nothing about it, and then fell in love with the results so much that she went the following year and has her own amazing testimony. So I hope you want to hear more from the veterans. Check out the PTSD page, Upledger Foundation page, and there's about a dozen videos there. These are all after videos of veterans talking about. Justin, is that the link? that you just posted?
Yep, that should get them there.
Okay, cool. So that should get you there. And you can check out testimonies from other veterans as well, including my friend Shelley, who is the one that called me and recommended it for me. She went the following year. So, a program that keeps on giving in more ways than one. Thanks, Justin. You've been a great host.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Frank, Hank, Kate, and Jackie.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night all.